Okay, it is 6 o'clock, so we get the music turned down some and get started. Greetings, Rahul. Saw you got submitted for a letter, so that'll probably be created tomorrow and then work on getting that sent out. But welcome, everybody. So tonight I'm going to be showing some new postcards I got that I want to use for sending out in addition to letters. And then I might have ended up getting another typewriter today that I'll already started cleaning up. So I'll show that a little bit and talk about Pelikan Hub, which is tomorrow night, what I'm taking, what I'm not taking, and things like that. So, that's kind of the rough plan, and then answering questions. And, if something else pops up, easy enough to handle along the way. So let me go on and get switched over. And I also, when we get to the typewriters, I have another microphone now, so you can hear the typewriter a lot better, because with these microphones, they're meant to take out background noise, where a typewriter, you want background noise. So you can play with that a little bit just for that kind of good clickety clack in the background. So nice. That's great, Rahul. Yeah. Pelikan Hub is all over, and I know at least for ours, it's kind of an open invitation, so you might not get one of the freebies that Pelikan sends, but it's still kind of a glorified pen club, and in Nashville, it draws in some of the audience who might not be regular pen club attendees. So let me get switched over to the overhead camera here. Okay, so here we have some of the new postcards that I got, and there's still one that I want to get called Effin' Birds that was not in stock, and I'm going to get those because I've seen them and they're hilarious. And hey, Lisa, Olive Octopus, welcome. I think Lisa actually has the deck of cards that are Effin' Birds, but it's just drawings of birds, and then I don't know if it's full curse words or if it's just, borderline inappropriate sayings, but to me that sounds funny. And it sounds like my mic is cracking a little. Let me turn that down slightly. So I haven't even opened up this Sibley backyard. It's 100 different postcards, and then this other one, disappointing affirmations, that just seemed hilarious to me as well. And I've never bought a postcard book, so I'll be interested to see how these work. And I have no idea if these are going to be fountain pen friendly, but now I can actually type on some of these as well. So let's take a look at what this is, because this is 100 of them, so I've got plenty to go around. Okay, so this is just like a little, from leading ornithologist David Sibley, a postcard box of 100 beautifully illustrated backyard birds. So there is a Twitch channel that I was turned on to by Olive Octopus, and Brad has rated there before. I Paint Burbs, who's another Nashville artist who does scientific illustrations for like Cornell and whatnot. So I've more appreciation for birds, but these are just literally like, go in here and find birds that I guess are local to you. And then on the back, you've got basic postcard stock, a place for a stamp. It says what's on there. Like, this is the California quail, common in coastal chaparral type habitat, often seen alongside roadsides or field edges. And then this was drawn in 2013 is when this was copywritten. So, hey, Needle Girl, welcome. Just talking about some new postcards I got. I know I got one from you recently, and I think it was an Effin' Birds. Talking about I want to get a set of those to add in, but yeah, so I've got 100 different bird postcards here, so I don't know if I can get to the level of requests. But one other thing I want to do tonight is I'm going to solicit some crowdsourced help on getting some new stamps because I'm going through stamps a lot quicker now. But before we get through, I mean, that I don't want to take all the 100 cards out of there. So there's going to be a bunch of birds, but this disappointing affirmations. And let's see, what did I do? If all my technology plays nice, can zoom in here. So these are just like the motivational posters that are going to be on the office wall with the complete opposite. Accept yourself for the hot mess that you are. And these are thick postcards. Like, I mean, you can see how little that bends. Ask the universe for guidance, then just go and do whatever stupid shit you were going to do anyway. I mean, it's that kind of, cards. Be kind to yourself, asshole. Disappointed. That's what you get for expecting things. So I already love this because I find these hilarious. Don't be sad. You're making everyone uncomfortable. So if you receive one of these, do not think it has any sort of reference to you. It's whichever one I thought was funny at the time, because I've got 30 of these, and it might be based off my day. It's never too late to change. So just wait until you absolutely have to. Take a moment to be grateful for all that you have. Okay, now back to wishing everything was different. So, I mean, these are great. The only person you can truly rely on is you. What a fucking nightmare. So it runs the full mixture, but I already love these. I think once I have the effing birds and that's going to be a hard choice of which one to go with. Because this, you kind of have to have the disclaimer, because I guess if someone has kids and they wouldn't necessarily want their kids to read a card that says you can fuck up anything you put your mind to in the mail, I'll have to be aware of that. So I'll have to add that to my letter form of, are borderline inappropriate things okay or not? But I just thought that was funny. It popped up as a suggestion, and I was like, huh. And it had like a 1 or 2 samples on the listing. Unfollow your dreams. Stop romanticizing the past. You've always been miserable. So I already love these. So I don't need to go through and read all of them. I want to leave some surprise. So if you're a recipient of one of these, speaking of, there is a link in the video description if you want to receive a letter or a postcard. I've never actually sent postcards per se, and I'm going to have to get some postcard stamps, but this is something that showed up yesterday, and I actually filmed my video earlier, but I have not yet edited it. So hopefully I'll get that done tomorrow for it to release on probably Saturday. But this is the new Inso Bolt version 2 in the aluminum. And aside, you'll see on the video, but there was no instructions with this, and putting the clip on that was optional was more of a challenge than it should have been. Now that I've learned what's involved, it's much simpler when you realize this is actually 3 pieces, not 1. But this is another neat little pin, and supposedly the silicone seals on the end are much better now. And yeah, welcome, George. Hey, John. And John, you might try submitting that form again. I still did not get your address on there, so you should just be able to go through, and I think I have it set up where you can do multiple. So if it's the same person, I can just delete a line. So go in and try that form again so I can get a letter out to you. But yeah, the disappointing affirmations, that can, and the best part is if there's one of these, that means there's probably more, because it's not imposter syndrome. You really do suck at everything. Don't forget that. Failure is always an option. Fuck it, take a nap. So these are going to run the gambit, but, have a panic attack, you've earned it. So, think of the opposite of Jack Handy quotes. If you understand that reference, that means you're of a similar age bracket. And if not, then, you can, I'm sure there's a searchable reference to some of those Jack Handy things. So, and George, I'll talk about that here in a minute, but this will definitely be one of the ones I'm bringing since the Inso just arrived, and I put a new to me ink in it, the Tasha Sabi Midori. And one thing that's kind of cool about that is this is a Let me see if I can zoom the next level to really, you can see the color on the nib. So the nib almost looks like it's plated. In Sabi Midori, it's a silver steel nib, but because of how this feed and nib works, it looks like it's PVD coated in Sabi Midori. So that's kind of neat. But I was trying that out. I tried it out on the new Krina paper that I got with the Mi Plus, and that's very similar to me to Tomoe 52, similar weight and things like that. But I also have one of the other Tasha inks that I'm probably going to put in a pin because I have a couple that need to be filled that I want to take with me tomorrow to Pelikan Hub. And then I also have a new Ackerman bottle that I have not yet opened up from my Venice trip. So I'm going to probably put those in pins. But in terms of Pelikan Hub, the one thing I'm not taking is a Pelikan because my Pelikan extra fine nibs are like a medium. And John, the new ring stuff, not yet. I've just been continuing to test the different ones that I have. That the one I showed on the other stream, that single pouch, is about the newest thing. So now I'm just kind of using them. My Mi Plus, and I've got it right here, has now become, gotta zoom back out for, this has now become my ink swatching / paper testing book because of the thicker rings. And I still have this in there because some people are looking at it. It's like the little leather sample thing they sent of the other colors. But so far I've been very pleased with this. And, looking at the costs though of these, I don't really view it as a different financial option than the plotter. Now that I've looked at it a little bit more, it's more of, if you like the ring system and you want nice leather, do you want the larger rings? If so, you can do the customized version through Mi Plus versus the kind of out of the box version that you get through plotter. So that's really the difference. I mean, they're using the same ring mechanisms. They're all the Kraus German rings, standard ring spacing. So they're not all that different, but the larger rings for this, because I was already out of space, I was having to take some of my paper or my testing papers out because I didn't have enough room. So to me, this was worth it. So this is definitely going tomorrow because I can just hand this to somebody and say, here, look through. These are the inks that I have swatched. It's not all of my inks. And then I have extra papers in these little project manager folders in the back. So this is like the Yamamoto fountain paper or fountain pen friendly paper testing packs. So people can look through and see, you can feel the paper. So there's some of these in here that I have more interest in now because I really want to go pull a sheet, because when you buy these, there's like 10 sheets of each. And this is the typewriter paper. So I kind of want to go put that in one of the typewriters and play around with it. But, if someone wants a piece of yu-sari to take home and try, they can take a piece out. Looks like I need to reload my earful. So that's the other part of tomorrow during the day while in meetings or things like that, is reloading this to take with me. This is the Life Bank paper, which I hate more now that I'm using it and really enjoying it, especially for the format and typing, that it is no longer going to, be produced. Nimacine. So if, people are using the Nimacine notebooks, because that's a common, great kind of workhorse notebook. So, that's what I have this for. Just random papers in here. There's nothing I'm not going to put paper in here that I only have like one of. Hey, Bailey, welcome. So, that's one thing that will be going to Pelikan Hub. But in terms of pins, what I was saying is I have an M805. I used to have an M605, but I gave that to my wife, and that's now one of her book or pins she keeps in her journal. That alongside the one that I got her. So those two are there. And then I have a steel one, but I don't use it often. And I've got enough pins inked right now that I'm not going to ink up either of the Pelicans, because I did it last year And then they're not really special Pelikans, if that makes sense. So it's not like something completely unique or a custom grind on it or something like that. Yeah, Bailey, most of my pins I'm bringing are going to be maker pins or ground nibs. Like, let me pull the pin block over here of what I've been using lately, if I can grab it without making a mess. So like this is one of my Kaleidocraft blocks, which by the way, Kaleidocraft, this was the custom block and she made a custom nameplate for me, which is magnetic, which I think is the coolest thing ever. So I can put different things on there, but like this is the PO nib and the Pilot 912. This is a Matthew Martin OG1 in all titanium that has a Matthew Chin ultra extra fine, my Newton Prospector with the 18 karat extra fine. And I've already written this dry once, and I think I'm a quarter down on the refill. I love this pen. I've been using it, probably my most used pen over the past couple weeks. This is one that needs to be refilled, and I don't know if I want to refill with the same color, but with this brown, I'm thinking the new, the other Tasha, or possibly the Ackerman could be a good contrast in here. You know, like my Franklin Christoph that has the Naga hard needlepoint in it. So things like that. That's what I'm mainly going to be taking is more of my daily pins, because honestly, that's what I think more people want to see. Yeah, John, Kaleidocraft. I don't have my keyboard out, so I can't type it. If Bailey, you probably have the link, or Lisa, if one of y'all could throw that link to the Kaleidocraft prints website in the chat, that'd be great. Those are awesome. And I liked it so much when she was doing the fundraising for St. Jude. I actually have two, because this in my plotter, these are my Kikuyo double-sided markers. This is the Asvian C80, so I'll probably take that one. This is the V800 that looks like child's candy that I'll probably take, but this is a pen that I might just do a giveaway on the channel or something like that, because it writes great, but I can't get past that cap band. It's like my kryptonite, apparently. This one I think needs to be topped off. It's my Amarillo stationery, because I don't know if Nick Pasquale will be there with him being local, but this is a blank keyboard. And then this has a steel sig in it. And then alongside, talking about Kaleidocraft, this is the most fun fidget pen I could ever imagine. This was just something that was thrown in with my order, and I do this multiple times a day. Like if I'm in a meeting, I'll just be sitting there, like, it's got a little magnetic stopper, so it holds the tip of the pen, and that just is mesmerizing. It's even more so on camera. Hadn't even looked at it through like my little prompter camera. It's even crazier on there. So, but that's what I'm planning on taking, is just more of the pins that I'm actually been using. I know there's some other people taking an M800 with an extra fine nib, so don't need necessarily multiple. So it's a very different approach. It is the one in green, George, and I will have that with me tomorrow at the hub. And aside from that cap band, I love everything else about the pen except for that cap band, but the material is great. Let's see. Still learning where I put all these buttons for zooming in and stuff. The material looks great. It writes great. The number 8 nib is great. The vac fill is great. That cap band, to me, looks like hot garbage. And we each have our preferences, and that's all I can do on that one. With the price point of this one, George, it's not worth a Dremel. I'm sure there's somebody who loves this pen and would love to get it as a giveaway pen or something like that. If I was going to go for that nib, I would much go with the C80, which is the same nib, and this is a cartridge converter, so easier to clean. And lately I've been liking more clipless pens, so I think this is a better fit for me. Now, do I need 2 of these? No, because as you can see, I've got plenty of other pens that I've been using. So it all comes down to preferences of what people are going to use. And, but I like that I bought the V800 and tried it, because it's good to get different opinions. And, if you're looking for just function and you don't really care how it looks, it's a great option. And might be a super option if you like the way it looks. I don't, and I just can't get past that. So here we are. One of the other things that I'm taking tomorrow, and I actually just set this on top of it, so let me get this out of the way, is what used to be my ink swatching plotter is now just paper. The new Krina, what Me Plus sells it's called the lightweight paper, which is essentially the Chinese version of Tomoe. So this was from the Gentleman Stationer event last weekend, where these are all the pins Nick Pasquale had with him. So a bunch of wet writers like Monty Winfield nibs and smearing inks and all of that. And then on the back, nothing. No bleed through, no show through. And then this was someone else testing different, nibs on it. So it's a promising paper. It's about the same price as Tomoe. So, I like that I'm going to have some to use, but I don't know that I'm necessarily going to use it all the time. I'm much more of a use some now for different purposes, but I do have a whole bunch in here because it is a relatively, it's not sold in many places, especially anywhere local. So I think right now you can get it through Me Plus, or then you have to go like the AliExpress route. And right now with shipping being weird, since I have some, this is mainly to give a couple sheets away to anybody who wants it. And then I have some regular Tomoe 52 right behind it. So if someone wants to do a side-by-side comparison, feel or writing, it's a great comparison point between those two. And then when all this is not in here, this has become my work exclusive cover, because I put all the paper testing into that Me Plus. So I had this around. So that actually made my normal A5 desk plotter thinner, which I'm fine with, because I don't need to take, with the work I'm doing currently, I don't need to take that with me anywhere. So I'd much rather just have it sitting on the desk, and then have them side by side where I can keep track of my calendar and whatnot in my main one. And then this is just like the to-do list and whatnot. And that stuff is currently in one of my laconic binders, since I have all this loaded in here. So it's been musical binders, but it's been a little bit of that anyway, as I've been testing the Me Plus, because I was sent the Me Plus by the company asking me for my opinion. And I said I was fine to do that, but I'm going to give the honest answer of what I think about it. In order to do that, I want to use it. So I did an unboxing, but I plan on doing a follow-up probably in a month or so, after I've had a chance to actually use it and see how the leather wears in and stuff like that, because that's more realistic to me of, a legitimate review. And I referenced in the video, pens and paper, that's kind of an immediate thing. But for a notebook like this, of, having to change how I've used it. So this is the third set of stuff I've had in here within a week and a half. So I've been doing a lot of musical binders at the desk of, okay, let me make this be the desk one, put my calendar and all that in here during the week, and carry it around the house or wherever, because I'm not going to Pen Club. I don't need to have all this in here for Pen Club use. So that's been kind of my, theory. Hey, Atomic Elf, how's it going? Was just talking about possibly doing another Asvine giveaway, and Atomic Elf was the person who won the very first and only giveaway I've ever done on the channel, which was the V126 that I compared to my Pilot 823. So it's always great to see people pop back on. But so that's mainly Pelikan Hub plans, is taking pins I already have inked that I've actively been using. And, because our pen club meets every Saturday, I go normally every other Saturday if I'm available. It's a different perspective too, because for pen clubs that might meet once a month, there's a lot more, let me see what's new. What's everybody got? So in this case, my pen wallet is normally the, do you like writing with tiny nibs? Here, just take this and try anything in it. And that's the way to go. And even with taking my 2 different rickshaws, I was dividing them between ground nibs and factory nibs. So if someone wants to play with ground, like Kirk's Tetanus or Kirk's Needlepoint, I can hand the one rickshaw that has all that, and the other one has like my Pilot PO nib in it, or the Platinum Ultra Extra Fine or Extra Fine and things like that. So just makes it easier to keep track of, of what people are trying for them. And then like the INSO will go in the production because this is a nib, but there's a couple other people in our pin club who really like extra fine nibs, and this is definitely a different type of feeling with the extra fine, but we'll see what goes with there. But definitely if you're going to the Pelikan Hub, I know George is, Bailey's going to the one in Minneapolis, isn't that right, Bailey? I know you're up in that general area, but no, it is perfectly straight. John, if theirs is bent, then that means they've bent it. The Krause rings, the back binder part is perfectly straight. And that is one thing, like you can see on this is the horsehair. And let me zoom it back in to show the difference a little better. This is actually a somewhat black coating, and then this is more bright stainless. And on the Me Plus, one thing you can customize is you could say, I want a silver back, but I want gold rings on the inside. So this is a separate piece from the actual ring mechanism. So it's a la carte with Me Plus, where there's a couple of the plotter options before I knew of Me Plus that if I was going to, from the leather that I might have preferred, I didn't want rose gold and I didn't want shiny gold. So that really determined which binder I went with, because I'm not a rose gold person. I didn't want shiny yellow gold. So my options were the Shiranami that had the silver, or the horsehair, which has like the black. So that's one other nice advantage with the Me Plus is then they don't have a rose gold. So if you wanted rose gold, you'd have to go plotter. If you wanted, certain options. So it's just something you kind of have to look at and pick the right tool and the right aesthetic of what you're going for in terms of, doing that kind of shopping. But they are perfectly straight. And if the rings are damaged or the bar is bent, I believe you can just get replacements. And that's actually something I've never really haven't mentioned on the channel much, but I vended the Arkansas Pin Show in 2016, I think, maybe 2015, making traveler style leather journal covers. I still have some of those blanks cut out in my random supply of leather. So I've thought about ordering a set of Krause rings and making my version of this, which would be very similar, but I like the leather I have, and I think that would be a cool mix because I have some red Latigo leather. And actually, let me see if I have I do, just a second here. So this is one of the ones I made a decade ago. This red Latigo leather. And it still works. It's got multiple elastics in it because I customized it. Because to make a basic traveler style notebook, it's actually really simple. There's some great YouTube videos on it. You cut a rectangle of leather, poke a couple of holes and get some elastic, and then you have a cover. So if you are a do-it-yourself person, you can easily make something like this. And then you can see you can use the traveler's bands to connect inserts together. You can see these are a couple of Lockbee inserts. This is speaking of the Arkansas Pin Show, this is probably from the year I vended. This is, I think this was from Pelikan Hub last year, looking at the, because this Colorverse San Francisco Bay and the Opus 88. Opus 88 last year the Pelikan Hub last year is when I got my first Opus 88. And then Olive Octopus gave me a sample of that ink, which I just poured in at the table at the restaurant into the pen and filled it up. So that's probably what this was from. Or it's a pen club, because here's the red crayon that had a roll stop on it that I also used. And here's some Kilk pen. So this was some pen club version, or someone in our local club who makes their own walnut based ink. So that's what this has become. And I know that that might be sacrilege to some, using OG Tomoe for scratch paper at Pen Club, but hey, what are you going to do? You know, it's got to be used for something, right? But I'm tempted to get a set of rings, and I've got another cover that's just like this, that's not punched, that I could make my own ringed version. And I think that would be a fun experiment. So I might be doing that now. I'd either have to get new leather and cut it, or mine would be slightly shorter, but with the rings, it might wrap around differently. So just something I might play with. It's someone else has mentioned that to me because they know I made some of the covers. So we'll see what becomes of that. I make no promises, but it might be fun to try. Yeah, Christy, I do kind of have to at this point. I mean, I have no excuse not to, really. So I already have the leather. So just ordering a set of rings and punching some holes, and those attached with what's known on leather stuff as Chicago screws, which essentially is like a little rivet and a screw that goes in the top. So it would be very easy to do. So I'll probably end up ordering that just to try. And even if I don't get the Krause rings, there are some other ones. I know the notebooks that Olive Octopus has been making with the, and I forget what you're making the covers out of, Lisa. It's not leather, but it's like I can't think of the word of what the cover material is, but like a vegan option of stiff, but not leather. So the other thing that I've obviously, if you've seen, been getting more into typing. Well, I might have slipped at lunch today and drove somewhere and came home with another typewriter. So this followed me home today because I slipped. You know, the meme you might have seen online where you slip and, you know, your credit card catches. But this is the new toy that it's not perfectly cleaned, but I got it working. The keys, these are Bakelite keys. So if you remember the old rotary phones, if you're of an age to know what that is, these will off gas over time, and they kind of create like what looks like corrosion crust. Well, some Simply Green, and those are all cleaned. And I think whoever originally owned this must have been a smoker, because there was a lot of yellow that came off of all of this. So I assume that was nicotine, but this is going to get a more thorough cleaning later on, where I can take it out of the case and do the full thing. But for the during meetings today, it worked out pretty good. So Taz, Pelikan Hubs, it's one of those things you kind of have to know they exist. So it's not, they don't advertise it all that much. People in the pen community, it's kind of, once you know that it's probably going to happen the following year, but they don't really advertise it all that much. Okay, leather alternative called Craftex. So Taz, don't feel bad. Just put in your calendar for next year that they're either in September or October-ish, and there is a new distributor for Pelikan now, so we don't know what next year is going to bring. But last year, you know, I had been to a Pelikan Hub in 2018. Well, I was out of pins for a couple of years with COVID and all that. And to lay flatter, honestly, the best thing you could do, John, without permanently modifying it, leather is pretty forgiving. Turn it inside out. Take I know with an actual Traveler, if you're talking Traveler's brand, they've got the little nub that's on the back, but fold it the opposite direction. With leather, you can get it damp. It's known as wet forming. So if you get your cover damp, now, you know, here's the little caveat. Do this at your own risk. The leather should be sealed enough where some water will not affect it, but every bit of leather can be different. But you can get it damp and then fold it the opposite direction and put something heavy on it. And then that will get the material to, you know, sit straight. And then your band should hold it closed. But, you know, it's, if you were going to go the tool route, there's something known as a skeever, SKIVER, that like Tandy leather sells or things like that. And you can It's what you do on a belt if you were going to put the leather through a buckle. It's like a little razor blade that's at an angle, and it shaves off a leather or a little bit so that when you fold it, it folds flat. So that would be the final option, but that would take away some of the leather on the inside. And with the Travelers, you'd have to rethread the strings because you'd have to skeeve over where the strings are. So I would leave that as a last option. Or if you have a Tandy leather shop near you, they're pretty common. Go in and talk to the people who work there. They're all leather workers for the most part, and they should be able to help. And you might be able to get some scrap leather and make a different one. So that way you're not, you're testing your theory on a piece of scrap leather versus your actual Travelers. Sorry, my iPad just heard me talking and started doing something. Give me a second. Okay, that was weird. St. Louis. Sorry about that. My iPad was hearing things and then trying to turn on lights in the rest of the house. Taz, you can go on to the Pelikan site. St. Louis, I'm sure, has one. Probably. When the Pelikan Hub is announced, people submit their names, and what you do is the first person or someone who volunteers will be the hub master, and they will help coordinate. They'll find a location and things like that. Yeah, especially since St. Louis has the show, there's going to be enough people to, seat a Pelikan Hub. I think you only have to have 8 to get a location, but like I mentioned earlier, this year with the new distributor change right around Pelikan Hub, like after it had already been announced, that might have thrown a little bit of, a kink in the normal programming. But you might be able to look, Taz, tonight and try and track down and reach out to the hub master. Ours in Nashville, I know there's a number, but it's kind of, you could show up potentially and hang out. You might not get something, but it really depends on the hub master and the location and things like that. But I would search tonight and see if you could track down, if you're on places like the Pen Addict Slack, there's a good thread in there about the events, but or maybe the Fountain Pen subreddit. I'm sure there's somewhere you can go, and it looks like Harumi said, yes, St. Louis is a confirmed city. So someone might be able to, and if someone in the chat knows who the hubmaster is for St. Louis, go on and throw that in. Yeah, Bailey, because the Slack, not everybody's in there, that might be harder. But if someone's able to go look in Slack at the hubmaster thread, if you can find who the person in charge is and drop it in chat, that'd be great. Harumi, you email hello@penaddict.com and request to be added to the Slack. And Brad will eventually add you. Yeah, Pen Addict has a Slack. It started years ago, but it's not, you have to be invited to join, and it's open to do the invite, but you have to email Brad, and then he does them, and as he gets to those emails, probably in batches. So, you could put hello@penaddict.com and just something in the message of, please add me to Slack, and then he'll send you an invite. Yeah, John, use a sponge. Don't just like pour water on it. Get a sponge, get it damp, and put it on the outside or along the spine. You don't have to do the outer edges. You just want it on the part that you're going to try and rebend. And let us know how it goes, because that is a common thing. And, with a spine like this, like what I would be talking about, if I was going to do water on this, I would put water probably just in this area right here. And then, you just fold it back this way as if you were doing it the opposite direction, and it's not going to go flat. It's going to go flat-ish. And then, you just want to do something with pressure. And you could use, depending on what you own, if you have clamps or something in your garage, you can clamp to kind of put down, but don't put the clamp directly on the leather. Use something as a buffer, like a wash rag or something like that, to keep the clamp foot off of the leather, because you don't want to indent your leather, especially actual traveler's leather, because it's a nice soft leather. A more durable leather, you've got a little bit more forgiveness in. So just keep that in mind, but let us know how it goes. What I was saying, this Smith Corona, this is actually like the OG laptop. This is called the Skyrider, and this was meant to be used on airplanes. So it's that kind of thing. And, I have another ultra portable that I got when I was in Little Rock, but this, to me, the little arms for holding the hello@penaddict.com. Bailey, since you have access to your keyboard, can you throw that email address in the chat? Hello@penaddict.com. And then you just put in somewhere in the message, please add me to Slack, like as the subject line or something like that. And you can mention in there you heard about it from me. Brad knows my username, so you could put DWRDnet. Because I assume Brad adds anybody who kind of asks, but I don't really know. But if you're getting referred from somebody who he knows, that might help a little bit. But feel free to throw that in there. But this is the newest one, and this one is quiet enough that I could actually probably take this to like a coffee shop and type and not be louder than some of the people who are talking on their phone. This was interesting when I was cleaning it up earlier today, that this is all one solid piece of metal. So to take all the guts out, you take out 2 screws and the whole inside slide out the back. But all the inside of this metal has insulation in it to make it quiet. So that's enough of my typewriter nerding out for right now. But this is number 5 that's in this room. And I have 2 more that my family have that are coming to me at some point, but I can quit whenever I want. Just keep telling myself that. And if not, I'll just go find. And for those of you who weren't here at the beginning, I did get some new postcards. The Sibley backyard birding postcards, and then the disappointing affirmations. There's a link in the video description. You can submit your address to me through the Google form, and I will send you either a letter or a postcard. And if you don't mind, a postcard that might have bad language on it, if you don't have to worry about a kid taking it out of your mailbox or something, and you want one of those, there's a little notes field. Throw in there, send me one of the, like this one. Stop worrying about what other people think. I mean, have you met other people? They're awful. I mean, who doesn't want that as a postcard in your mailbox? Or there's nothing you can't do as long as it doesn't have to be any good. So that's just fun. But, the typewriter thing, I am trying to figure out how to do my video of what got me down this rabbit hole of owning 5 typewriters within a few weeks, of documenting the process of typing out a letter to Tom Hanks and mailing it and hopefully getting a return. So still working on that video part, but I think that'll be a fun experiment. And if nothing else, I didn't realize how many typewriter people there are who are already fountain pen people, and fountain pen people who are intrigued by typewriters, because this is the next level of analog. You're still not staring at a screen, and it's I never typed on a typewriter in 10 typewriters. Yeah, we'll have to do a typewriter specific stream at some point and let people send in pictures, because the more I've learned about these, the more fun. And now that I'm determined that I'm going to do everything I can to repair the things myself, I don't know how that's going to go, but I figure I can get it to a point and it's either going to work or it's not. And if it doesn't, I haven't, George, I'm going to do it as a video. So I'm trying to figure out filming angles of how to film it and document that for a YouTube video, to just go through the whole process. Tom Hanks has over, Always Analog? No, I'm not familiar with them. I'll have to look them up. I know Tom Hanks has over 300 typewriters. There's a museum that has part of his collection in it. And just recently there was like a big typewriter convention in Minneapolis, and the Tom Hanks personal typewriter repair technician did a panel, and I think that's hilarious. That's cool, Taz. We actually have a typewriter store, or like someone who got into typewriter. So NashvilleTypewriter.com. I've been to the store once, but that aforementioned convention, I got there, it's like a 40-minute drive from my house. I'm like, oh, of course they'll be open. I didn't see any posting saying they'd be closed. And of any place that I'm like, okay, I'm cool with it, that I just drove 40 minutes and they're closed, they had a typed out letter on the door. And I was like, that's just perfect. You couldn't hope for a better, disappointment. A nicely typed letter. Sorry for the inconvenience. I'm at the typewriter convention. I was like, okay, I couldn't help but laugh and then get back in the car and drive 40 minutes home. But in a way, that was a good thing, because the typewriter I might have purchased that day, I now have 5 typewriters for less financially than I would have for that one. And I'm learning a lot more about it in the repairing part and the playing with them. So overall, I'm considering it a win. But you can see this is like a small, you see a A5 notebook for scale. This is not large. And this will fit in Taz, from what I understand, you can look up the address online. You send it to Playtone, his production company, and if you type him a letter, it takes some time, but he will type a response back to you from one of his vintage typewriters. So I figure I like the typewriters. I like playing with stuff like this. It's a win-win for me. I'm getting into a new hobby that kind of ties in with the fountain pen world and stationery, because it is a different type of stationery tool. And I can document it, send a letter, and if I get a response, that's a great follow-up video. If not, I now have typewriters that I'm getting to play with. Like, I know there's some people in the chat who've already received their letters, and that's one thing that I put. If you're submitting your address on the Google form, on some, I'm typing the first half of the letter and then handwriting the second half. So the only thing different now is I'll type in, or I'll write in at the bottom, oh, it was typed on this typewriter. And then this is the pen and ink I use to write the handwritten part of the letter. So it's just an extra fun little way to get more into letter writing. And because I have 4 of these right there, this is the oldest one. The second one that I got, this is a 1935 Royal Portable that was a one owner. I got it from a guy who was in his 70s, and it was his aunt's. So this was probably owned by his aunt. Then I guess he became the caretaker, but it was missing a screw from this. And there's a Typewriter Chicago who I just sent them an email and said, hey, do you happen to have or know where I could find the screw for this? And they're like, oh, I've got one of those. What's your address? They just mailed me the part. So I was able to get that fixed. And now the bell will chime when you hit the margin. It's kind of faint, and I don't know if it came through there, but yeah, I have 4 Royals and now one. I was about to say Conway Stewart. That is a pen, not a typewriter, but so back to, oh, that's cool. Yeah. The Royal seems to be one of the more common, and the first time I saw the one that I just got today, when I had just picked up that Royal I just showed, and let me switch over to this camera while I'm talking here. I had just picked up that and went to Gentleman Stationer and was talking, and Joe is also a typewriter person. So he pulled out his 3 typewriters he had in the shop, and one of them was that Skywriter. And he was talking about how, yeah, this was meant to be used like on the tray table of an airplane. And it had that little fold up prongs. Some of them had like one. The other Royal I have doesn't have anything like that, because it was a kind of more basic model when Royal was sold, and then it's one of the Holland made options. But there was something about those little antennas that folded up to hold the paper, and I was like, I gotta have one of those. And then this one today, a lady posted it, and I was like, I'll give you half of what you're asking because it needs to be cleaned up. And she's like, okay. So I went and picked that up at lunch, went to the Kroger by there and picked up some fresh Simply Green and some isopropyl alcohol. And then during 2 meetings today, as I was listening, because I didn't have to talk, I'm sitting at my desk cleaning a typewriter, and now it types. I put new ribbon on it, which I already had some ribbon, so win-win. But yeah, seeing those that, Joe had, and then some other people, I don't think Lydia's in the chat right now, Tiber Swimmer, who's out of Arkansas. She has some typewriters, and it's kind of an addictive thing. Like, my friend Anne just bought one in San Antonio, and I think she had a conflict with coming on the stream. She's normally here, and she got one that has the German keyboard. So as she said, now, because it has like the umlauts on the different characters, she's just going to have to start by writing everything Motorhead all the time, so that, because she can do the actual little proper formatting on Motorhead. So quirky things like that, seeing the different localized keyboards of, oh, this one doesn't have a dollar sign, it has RP for rupees because it was meant for the Indian market, or it has rupees and the pound sign because it was British, before the changeover. So just little things like that, seeing how something can be localized, just like pens or paper. It's just a neat crossover to me. So if nothing else, I'm not going to turn my YouTube channel into a typewriter channel. I'm just adding it in as another tool, kind of like adding in a different pen or stuff like that. Welcome, Jesse. So that's going to be the typewriter stuff. And I do have a different microphone set up, and I don't know that I'll do it tonight, but last week, I did a stream that I was typing out the letters of people who submitted. I was just asking if it sound, or if it had a decent enough sound, because there's something about the sound of the typewriter that is cathartic to me. Just hearing it and typing, because it's not like typing on a keyboard. On these old manual ones, you have to put some effort into it. So I'm doing like a more hunt and peck versus proper typing, because my pinkies don't do enough force to get the letters down where they have a good imprint. So there's things like that. And then even just the differences in fonts, or I guess Pico on a typewriter, but what we would know as now on computers is fonts and font sizes. Or my friends in Memphis, they have one that writes in script. So a cursive writing typewriter. I mean, I'm going to have to track one of those down at some point. I think I would. I mean, why would I not? Oh, okay. That makes more sense. The different usernames. Oh, nice. I'm not familiar with that, Taz. I'll have to look that up. Is it just an app, or is it a like an emulator type thing? I'm gonna mute real quick while I grab a drink. Yeah, my iPad is older, but I don't use it as much, so I'm not at the point of wanting to replace it. But at some point, I'm gonna have to break down just to get all the new features and things like that. But you want to show something else I picked up from Vanessa on my last order. So previously I'd been using a Galen leather A5 for my journal and things like that. I picked up the writer's bag, and I thought this was neat because alongside fitting the current journal book I'm using is, I think this is a Kakamori or Kikuyo. It's one of those two. But they had like the fabric covered. I don't even know that it says it. I think it was literally just completely blank book. Yeah. But this is nice and thin, but it's got this cool kind of tweedish cover. So I want to keep it in a cover. So I'd been using the Galen A5, but then it had the pin loops in it and stuff that I wasn't actually using those, because I normally had either a pin in my pocket or my Sinclair with me or something like that. And it wasn't the best at keeping stickers. So now if I'm going to journal, I've got the ability to have all the stickers with me, including, of course, typewriter stickers. that was a happy discovery that Vanessa happened to have when placing that recent order, and it's Royal typewriter. Even though some of these are not Royals, I thought that was cool. So, and then the Happiness Handmade stickers, which if you're not familiar with those, they are great. Vanessa sells them, or you can go to happinesshandmadellc.com, I believe is Danielle's website. And then my assortment of Well-Appointed Desk and sushi stickers, and now sumo stickers. And some of the letters I sent out, I was putting other stickers on it. And then I picked this up at Gentleman Stationer this last weekend, the 2026. Yeah, Bailey, Vanessa sells the Happiness Handmade because Danielle is based in Arkansas. So like when I went there for Pen Club, the ends of the zipper teeth sharp. Yes, they're not very rounded. I think this is a YKK zipper. I can't see the tab because it's stitched in leather, but it feels kind of like a YKK. So the teeth do have a little bit of bite, John, if that's what you're asking, like going along the edge. It's not like cut you sharp, but it's not dull. It looks like the way the teeth go, they've got a little bit of an angled chamfer on it. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question. But I got this because all the stickers, and then I picked up the 2026 Traveler stickers, even though I'm not really using a Traveler's notebook. Thought the stickers looked cool. And now that I used to, when I would journal, I would not use stickers at all. I wrote on lined paper, and it was pretty boring, but I was doing it. And then once I finished the first book, I went to the second one, and I was like, oh, I'm going to try some different paper. Well, I write tiny. So, and in terms of tiny, you know, when I say that, sometimes people don't get it, but like this, if I write, 2 pages of A5, that might be quite a bit for someone else. So I've started putting stickers or washi, including this, which is the best washi in the world, the curse word washi that Gentleman Stationer has, because why not? But, and like, here's a Happiness Handmade sticker on here. And, so I've been adding stickers in, or like, this is when I ordered my first thing from Kaleidocraft, or here's the one from Kirk when I got my ground nib. So trying to put thematic stickers with things. Addie sent from Stationery Stack, sent me one of her new stickers, or like the latest ones of, I had like a week or a week and a half where I didn't write anything and I had to play catch up. So let's see, I wrote, I think, all of this at once because I indent with dates. So yeah, and these are the stickers I made for the podcast show. Yeah, I write tiny, and also and Vanessa. I don't know if they're putting it in every order, but if you've ever ordered from Vanessa and you get Mike's little handwritten notes at the end, they made a sticker for Suicide Awareness Month. It says "You Matter." I think you could put that in the notes and request that. This is an A5, Bailey. This is an A5, and I think it's Joe from Gentleman Station doesn't carry them anymore. It was like kind of a limited run, but I've always used A5 for journal. I don't know why. And then like Write notepads is what I used before, the hardcover. And with them stopping to sell retail, I actually have 4 more in a box that I got because I really like that format. It fits in these covers well. But I'm also tempted to try something different. But then I get to the point of, oh, I could use my Stology that I got at Yoseka or something like that. And then it clicks of, that would be a multiple year endeavor for me because of how tiny I write, even with stickers. So I'm a little bit torn. I don't know what's going to come after this, because even so, I was thinking, oh, okay, yeah, I got to be getting close to this, and I'm not even halfway through. So I still have all of this left. So with my writing plus stickers, it's going to take a bit. But all that to say, this writer's bag, it's supposed to be like a bank bag style thing, and it's thin, so it's lighter. It'll fit in my rickshaw with the 3 plotter. So I had this, or like the Me Plus, my regular plotter, and the paper plotter with me at the gentleman stationer grand opening event where he had like a kind of unofficial pin club meetup in what was the old store, which is now a small event space. And I could have all this with me because our pin club now, we're getting more people in. It's getting a little bit more active. Excuse me. And I think we're going to start doing like some journaling meetups or stuff like that. That's been in our pin club Discord of, hey, what can we do? So now that we're getting some more active people, that's an easy thing just to grab this and go. Because I'm going to have a pin with me of some sort. I could put a pin in here because this comes with, I don't know where it is. I don't know where I put it, but it has like a little insert that has, I think, 4 pin loops on it. So you can put that in there and it'll still hold an A5. But like I said, I didn't need the pin loops in there per se. So that's why I went with this, because the stickers on my other one, I was having to always put them inside the front cover and then trying to get something out and sort through it. This is just easier to quickly, I mean, I could leave them in here and glance and go, oh, I need that, you know. But I've been collecting stickers from all sorts of stuff because like these are still from my Thanksgiving trip last year to New York. These are the goods for the study stickers. Here's one from Pelikan Hub last year that someone in our local pin community drew a Nashville based Pelican bottle, which I thought was really cool. And I kind of hope this person, this is someone who doesn't come to Pin Club normally, but they made stickers for the Pelikan Hub last year and just gave them out to people. So that's the kind of non-pin club. I don't want to say non-pin club person, but someone who doesn't attend our meetings regularly, but was obviously an artist and was thoughtful enough to make stickers. So that's cool to me. Just those kind of little things that you might only see that person once a year, but you get a chance. Because I don't remember his name, but I remember he had a brand new bottle of Omos Gray with him. He was letting people fill up pins or take samples of, and I'm like, that's very generous on its own right, much less making custom stickers. And I was just seeing the comment earlier, I would definitely have metal, or prefer to have metal zippers over nylon or plastic, especially on leather. There's just something about a metal zipper that if you take care of it, you can slightly, because I'm a scuba diver and I have a dry suit, for the metal zippers on there, that's the one place I don't want a metal zipper. I like the plastic zippers for that, because then you don't have to use beeswax on them to keep them sealed. They seal better with plastic. But other than that, I'm team metal zipper for almost everything else. Yeah, John, I mean, you could probably take something like micro mesh and kind of, when it's zipped or unzipped, go along the edges, but that does run the risk of making it where it's not going to zip as smooth, because some of the function is based off the angles that those little teeth are at. So they're going to hold the sliding part of the zipper, which I know there's a special fancy name for that I don't know what it is. I can't think of it. So I'm just going to say the slidey part of the zipper, and we'll go with that. That's just how it, interacts. So, it's a preference thing. I'm like with your travelers, you want it to fold more. You could probably play around with it and modify it a little. Mine are not annoyingly sharp, because you have to hit it at the exact right angle for it to be sharp. So like if it's slightly folded down, they're not sharp at all. All the way the other, not sharp. It's just at this angle, and I know I won't be able to zoom in enough with the camera, but you can see the angle where it's going to catch on the guide of the zipper that has the little sharp corner. But that's also part of the function because of how it has to interlock with the other side. So, it's a little bit of an annoyance versus, well, for me, everybody is going to have their own different, yeah, Bailey, you're saying you're sensitive to texture, and, for you, it's a thing. So, John, you could probably dull it down, but I wouldn't go too much. Less is more. I wouldn't even say sandpaper. I would go with micro mesh, which you might already have from pen stuff. Because, we're talking about plotters earlier. That is one thing that Me Plus did, that if you own a plotter, you're going to be familiar with this fact. If you don't, these corners out of the box are sharp. Me Plus rounded the corners. So little things that I've had to do myself using micro mesh on the plotter, Me Plus did that and they produced, and I think that's where, they're making their own take, because this is something I was talking to Lisa Vanessa about. In Japan, Plotter's kind of the copycat, where there's other companies who have been around longer. Plotter just happens to be the first company that brought this style of notebook to the US. So here, Me Plus is a copycat, where in Japan, Plotter is also kind of viewed that way. And I don't, this is all just from someone who's been in the stationery world, when Lisa Vanessa and I were talking about that. So I'm sure it's all different, but she was asking about things because she's about to go to Tokyo International Pen Show and is looking at more ringed things to bring back. She already carries some of the Reimei and some of the others, but I'm excited because there's going to be more Bible size inserts or personal size, because that's not common. You don't find all that much of that here. There's a couple places you might find a thing here or a thing there, but I want more. I want the accessory items, the binders, the pockets, the stuff. Like I got the little, where's that? Oh, it's actually right here. The most impractical, practical hole punch there is. It punches like a single sheet of paper, but it's meant to stay in your notebook. Now, I'm not going to put that in a plotter because that takes up a quarter of the paper space. But if you need to punch a paper for work, and you can just, let's find a piece. What do we got here? So this was from the Enzo video I did earlier. And the other, it's got these little things you slide it under. And then, I need to punch. That's great. Except it leaves the little hole things all over. So, they're stuck in here. It's practical and it's impractical, because think about if you're doing this in a meeting in your office. I got it from Vanessa, George. It's one of the Reimei accessories that they have. And, so if you place an order, don't forget you can use the DWRDnet code and save 10%. And I think that does apply on these. It doesn't apply on like Twisby and Galen and some of the other things, but I think it does apply on these. But then you got the little holes that are going to be around on your desk. So if I had this when I was still working in an office, I wouldn't be able to use this. That's when I would be more likely to just buy a second hole punch and keep it at my desk if I was having to punch stuff a lot, just for the cleanup aspect. But, maybe there's another use for it, or it's kind of I would kind of view this like the emergency hole punch. In case of emergency, pull out that kind of impractical hole punch that lives in your binder. But I think this is also meant for, like, this makes me think of like a Franklin Covey binder, something from the early 2000s, where you're talking about people who have 30, rings that are 1.5 inches large, where it's like a full portfolio they're carrying around, versus, 11 millimeter rings, 30 millimeter rings versus 11. Because even with the 16, this would be pushing it depending on what you have in there. But once again, you might be catering to what you're doing. And this will also fit in the Bible size. And so it'll punch A5, Bible/personal, or the A6 size, where it's like essentially there's no space between the two trios of punches. So it has its place. It's just a quirky thing that I got it mainly to see the backspace, because that's one thing, because I'm punching a lot of paper now to use in my notebooks. I'm more aware now, after having bought a couple of other hole punches. And Tuli, I wish I had all the Filofax stuff I used to have, because I found the box the other day from my original Filofax cover, and it was from 2005. The executive leather, that the bookstore I worked at out of college sold them, and I bought it on clearance and used that thing from probably until 2012. And then, as I changed jobs, the next job didn't have as much of a need for a paper calendar. So I kind of went without paper for a bit there. But now I'm fully back into it because, at least from the way my brain works, if I write something down, I'm going to remember it more. I don't have a Rapesco. I have this is the main one I've been using lately. It is the Bira Bira, and it punches not quite as shallow as the plotter like default, but pretty close. And even this, so this was the default punched on this Krina Spark paper that is like the Chinese Tomoe. And well, that's interesting. I just noticed that because I did it in the opposite direction, the holes don't line up. I didn't think about a top and a bottom, but it's on the Rapesco, can you adjust the back spacing of the edge of the hole to the edge of the paper? Because if so, I'm going to buy one of those tomorrow. Because that's my biggest complaint is when working in small rings, like I've had to go and repunch all my laconic undated inserts just to get that. It kind of makes an oblong hole because it makes it a millimeter or two over, but then that lets the pages turn. So for me, that's become a necessity to double punch those holes, which is not the biggest deal because now, like and actually I'll show it here because I have the plotter here, and why not? We were talking about typewriters earlier too. Because why not take it to the next level of going full in on analog? So I already had a bunch of my calendar stuff written out by hand for the undated inserts, but get to the right button here. I went full tilt for December and into January. I typed the numbers in every single little box and typed in the month, and I got it on the lines. I was very proud of this because this was like day 2 after getting the first typewriter. I tried on one of my already done sheets, and aside from like this one here, I put the year slightly low. I know that's a little bit blurry, sorry, because with the extra zoom, it kind of, the light's washing it out. But I went through and I typed the dates. So for the rest of 2026, at some point, I'm going to have to sit down and I got in a flow and was doing it. So I'll have to do the rest of January into, next December. Senior director of the group did a Teams coffee chat today. And see, I find that funny, George, because when I used to travel a lot for work, I would be on the road like a week, a month. And when I was doing that, I always had like my little Nocco roll with me, and my pocket pin that I kept it with me all the time was my Namisu titanium. And, I was flying somewhere a week, a month, going to a site, virtualizing, the stuff, but walking around with a physical notebook. I think I was using the Rhodia meeting books at that point, and my iPad, because that was connected into a machine. So I'd walk up to someone's desk, look them up on there, write stuff down, make sure they could get into the new virtual machine or something like that. But I kept those physical lists because that was faster to me than trying to look up stuff when I'm standing there and it's holding someone up from working. So I could write down name and then do the paperwork stuff after. And I was doing that all with fountain pens. And Like at my desk at my office, I had the platinum desk pin set with the black and the red, and I use those all the time. And then I kept a bottle of one of the little bottles of Oroshizuku in my desk drawer because in case of emergency, refill pen with black ink. You know, but then when our office closed, I like didn't touch my pens for a good amount of time, probably from let's see, March 17th of 2020 is when I no longer worked in an office. Switching to working at home, I wasn't writing anything down, which I thought was odd because I was so, I was filling pins up every week or so because as I was traveling or using them at the office and keeping a paper, everything and meeting notes, and it all kind of stopped. And then, we kind of got into it. Like a friend sent my wife and Asveen and myself and Asveen probably August of last year. And my wife, she she wasn't afraid of fountain pens, but she didn't want to necessarily use mine. Well, then that was gifted to her. And she was like, well, I got to use this. So she filled it up with some of the ink I had. Then she liked it. And now she's at the level of, she is now pen-abled in her writing group. She was at a writing session the other day and let someone try one of her Twisbees because they'd been talking about, oh, their hand hurt when they were writing. Well, then the next time she saw her, she's like, oh, yeah, I don't need to borrow your pen. I went to that store you told me about, Gentleman Stationer, and I went in there and it's like my friend from the writing group, and Joe just told her, tell Beth thank you. And now the person in her writers group has 5 Twisbees, a couple of notebooks, a few bottles of ink. So, that's kind of how it can be contagious. Once people actually get a chance to write with a fountain pen, they're more likely to get it. It might be anachronistic to some extent, but it's really not because it's just a better writing experience. And most people just have no idea. Yeah, John, I'm obviously, since I work in IT, I can't do everything analog, but what I can do are things that I enjoy. Like I journaled on and off, and then I had a long period of time where I didn't write anything. And then I kind of got back into it. And now I'm like, oh, it's kind of nice when you just dump your brain on paper. It lets you focus on new stuff better, at least for me. So, I filled up a whole nother. The first journal I had, I started in like 2013 because I found the entry of when I found my first fountain pen that I really still don't know how it came to me. It was in one of the drawers, like at my house, and my parents were bringing stuff here from when they were moving from Texas to Georgia. So anything that had been mine or like kind of generic office type stuff, a lot of that ended here, including like the bookshelves behind me. Those are what was in like our office room that wasn't really an office when I was growing up. So don't know the history, but I found the fountain pen and I went and looked and I had in there when, oh, look, I found this pen and I posted on Facebook, and it turns out that my college roommate and his wife, they're into pens. So I'm going to do a road trip. And then I went to Vanessa and bought a Sailor and some Ackerman. And then I went back the next, between Christmas and New Year's and bought a Pelikan. And, it kind of went downhill from there. Or maybe it wasn't the Pelikan, it was the 823. The Pelikan was a pre-order. So as soon as they released the Streisand edition, so it went downhill because, as you can tell with my typewriters, when I get into a hobby, it's all or nothing. I don't dabble. I'm going in or I'm not going at all. And I'm fine with that. I know that about myself. And, it's like even the YouTube channel. I started last year with the Colorverse calendar. And, I used to hate editing video. And then I was like, coming back to it now, I was like, oh, it's kind of relaxing. Kind of like that. I should do that more. And then here we are. And now doing streams and doing like the podcast interviews, I enjoy that more than the actual videos. But I still like doing the videos, so it's just a different type of thing. I like the interaction, like being able to read the chat and interact with people here. I had heard that streaming was just a different type of thing, but until I did it, it didn't click. And now I'm like, oh, I'm fully in, Yeah, John, I'm a 98. So I graduated in 98. And when I started journaling, I had stuff going on, and someone suggested it so I started with like a ballpoint pen because I can tell the pins in the paper, because it was like in IT there was always like the free notebooks that some vendor would come in and do a presentation. And there was like a stack of them in like the IT or like the supply closet. So mine was from some random computer vendor. It's like a B5 size, probably. One of the, oh, what's the company? I want to say Letterpress, but it's not Letterpress. It's kind of the generic notebook that you're going to find somewhere. And you can tell I started with a ballpoint, and then you can tell when I went to a G2, and then you can tell when I went to fountain pen, because the first one was like a medium nib. And you've seen my writing. I am not a medium nib writer, so it was really messy. And then once I got to the sailor and things went, I found the right nib size. And now I've been more intentional, like with the current one that I was showing. If I have multiple pens with me, because we've started going, it's been a few weeks because we've had other stuff going on. Like my wife had a book event, she was vending and things, but each page is written with a different pen. Oh, I guess would help if I show what I'm talking about here. And so each page is a different pen. And if there's a pen that I have with me that is thematic to what I'm writing about, I try and do that. It's like when writing with about some of the Amarillo stuff, I wrote with my Amarillo pen. When talking about, oh, I got this new pen, I'm probably writing with it. So I tried to be intentional with what I'm using and make it tie in, but that's also getting me to use more of my pens, because that is one thing I've become guilty of. Not that it's a bad thing, is I have a lot more pens inked now than I would have in the past. So I'm trying to make sure that I actually use them, because I don't want to have pens sitting around. And that's also, like we were talking about earlier, why I'm not inking up my Pelikans for Pelikan Hub, is because I won't use them, because the nibs, honestly, I think I'm going to get like my 805 ground finer next time I'm at a show where there's a nib grinder and I can get, in person to make sure it's how I'd like it. But the Pelikans, they're smooth writers, but they're very wet, and they're almost too large for my writing on a regular basis. So I'd rather not fill those up, only to have them sit there, not get used, and then have stuff potentially dry out inside of them. So that's another reason why I'm kind of going that route. And so I'm not hoping. Hey, Anne, we were talking about typewriters earlier. Anne is the one who got the German keyboard typewriter, so she can start typing Motorhead poetry. So we're going to have to wait for the release of the book, of the Motorhead poetry book, all on typewriter at some point. George, I'm forced to write myself the pens. I've tried ink now. I went through a phase, John, in high school where I would only write with a V5, but I would go through phases where, like, it'd be V5 or precise V5 or nothing. And then the next one, it was like, okay, I wrote with a Bic Crystal for like 2 months, because that was like the best pen in the world. So I would go through, find one, use it, and then till I tried some other pen and it became the next grail pen. And I would go through phases like that. Yeah, I saw that Pelikan that Sean Newton had from people donate pins, and he auctions them off and for his scholarship. And sometimes he's talking to him, there's people who've sent in like M1000s and whatnot, and he'll auction those off. So he never knows what he's going to get to auction off. And every once in a while it's some sort of crazy pin, and it's cool that he's able to use that as a way to raise money for the scholarship he does. Which, if you're not familiar, Sean Newton, the pen maker, who made pins such as this one or the other one that's in the rickshaw over there somewhere. He does a scholarship. He's a former high school teacher, and he used to do postcards that his students art, because he was an art teacher, would do, and he raises money. Now he gets people to donate pins, and he auctions them off on eBay, and all that money goes towards scholarships for students, art students from his former high school. So just a cool way of paying it forward now that he's a full-time pin maker. So if you're interested, I think he has information for that on newtonpins.com. Definitely check that out. Sean's a great guy. He was in Nashville last weekend for the pop-up event, and he almost got me to buy another prospector, but I behaved. But it was black and yellow ebonite, and it was just the most beautiful pin, but I came away without it. Now, does that mean I won't get one at Arkansas next year? Who knows? That's a long time away, and a lot of life will happen before then, and there could be another typewriter or three. But what I was about to say is another local pin maker who is close to me geographically. This Sunday, I am purchasing his older lathe, and I have no aspirations of becoming a full-time pin maker, but I want to learn how to make pins just as I like learning stuff. I mean, I took apart a typewriter like the day I got it. So that's going to be the next thing, is kind of learning the basics of pin making or something like that. Just to learn the skill set. And then if I turn out something that's not terrible over time, hey, maybe I'll make a little store or something, but I don't think I would have the time to devote to it like some of the pin makers, but there are some pin makers who kind of do a pin here, a pin there, as kind of a side thing, because they enjoy working with their hands, and that is kind of where I'm approaching it from. So we'll see how that goes. But let's see, getting caught up on here. That Nagasawa, George, though, that's such a nice pin. I mean, and since you were getting it for, to alternate against the glacier, the bright white with blue to that matte black, I mean, it's win-win. But one of my favorite, I don't know where it is at the moment, but a pin I really liked that I got not that long ago is from a place out of Chattanooga called Big Eye Design. And it's the Ardo TI EDC. And it's like the Inspector Gadget of pins, because it can use like over 700 different refills. So you could put a G2 refill in it, or you could put a Zinto in it, or you could put a D1 in it, because it has a little chuck on the front of it to hold the pin steady like a drill would have. And then the body telescopes to fit the back of the insert, which is brilliant. And that's a fun pin. I think it's in my like sling bag. It's kind of the pin that stays in there. And I think I currently have a Zinto refill in it, possibly. I'd have to look, but that's where you kind of find what works. And like in my, something that I've always done is I keep a fuel log. Am I ever going to use it? Have I ever used it? No, but it's what my parents did, and it just has been ingrained. So every time I ever put gas in my vehicle, I write it down with the mileage. And I have a Pilot G2 that I'm going to have to replace soon, because I've written it down to where it's hardly any ink left in it. I think when I replace it, though, I might put one of these other pin bodies there. Multi-pins, there's another thing, and that's one thing I love, that with Joe opening up the new storefront, he has a multi-pin wall now of all the different refills in the pins, like all the High-Tech C refills and things like that. It's much easier to find the pins. Like this is one like the Pilot with the Acro ink. And then I also have the Uni with the Uniball ink. And then I have the Lamy 2000 that I took all the Lamy inserts out of because they're terrible, and replaced them with Uniball inserts. So multi-pins, I also just have a bunch of those around the house, because like here's another one sitting here in my little stationary stack tray. This is the tri-pin version that has, Uniball refills in it. So, having pins around the house, I love fountain pens, but I don't always need to use a fountain pen. And so Bailey, if people keep stealing his pins, then he needs a pen that just looks crazy. We were at where was it? Oh, it was, I think it's when we were in Arkansas and we went to the Mexican restaurant after the pen club, and it was like Lisa Vaness and her friend and myself and Tiber Swimmer and Olive Octopus. And at the front entry, they had like this 12 pin multi pin that was like a foot long. And so it's like this younger kid writing down on the table. And it was funny because they're like, yeah, no one will steal that pin. So everybody was laughing at this massive pin, but I just thought it was funny. So I think I'm going to wrap it up there. You know, if you're going to Pelikan Hub tomorrow, I hope you have a good time. And, you know, don't forget, follow the link in the video description if you want to receive a postcard and our letter. And if you've submitted, let me know and I can check real quick to see if it came through or not. Yeah, so it doesn't look like there's any others from earlier. I got, you know, a couple people. So, you know, some of you have already received your letters and hopefully they've arrived. Like, Thule, yours, hopefully you'll be getting there soon because that's been sent out. And I know Anne has gotten some, and I don't know if Olive Octopus has received theirs yet. George, I think you said you got yours. So different ones coming out at different times, but I only have, as of this moment, 2 people who I've not responded to on the form. Bailey, go on and throw it on there because it's an easy list and I can use that list to kind of go through. It's like out of sight, out of mind. If I have to go search for addresses, I'm more likely to forget it because I'm not writing down people's addresses. I don't want to have that. So it's kind of running there, but you know, submit that. And then I don't know what I'm going to do for a stream next week. I think I'm going to revisit the Dominant Industry book again and try painting round 2 and see what we end up with. Round 1 was not terrible. Round 2, I think, can be better. And then since there are some more of you who are typewriter people as well, I'll probably do that as a separate, not Thursday night stream, maybe like a Saturday morning stream. Because when I did the hotel stream from Little Rock, that actually had more people on it than I thought. And that's normally a good time before I'd go to Pen Club or something like that. So, you know, watch out on the channel. If I schedule that, I'll try and do that at a different time because that's potentially a different audience. Yeah, Nicole, it's just a Google form that just sends it to me. So that way I have things in the notes field. If you don't mind things that might have potential language on them, like the disappointing affirmations or the effing birds, once I get them, you know, put that in there as well. You know, I figure if people with kids, they might not want to run the risk, and I'm not going to be able to keep track. So if it says you're fine with whatever, or, you know, you're not, then Bailey, I appreciate when you join whenever you're possible. You know, people have lives. I don't expect everybody to come to every stream. That's the nice thing with streams is you can watch parts after the fact and kind of skim through and whatnot. So, no, John, good luck with your travelers. Let us know next time you're able to hop on a stream how it went and everything. But, you know, I appreciate everybody for spending some time tonight. Have a good Pelikan Hub or good weekend. And I will talk to you later.